I thought marriage meant safety. I thought trust was our bedrock. One night I heard a key in the lock at 2 a.m. Her voice was a whisper I didn't recognize. "He won't notice," she said. Then a man's laugh I used to know. My heart stopped. The woman I loved was lying to me with the one man who hurt her before, her ex. That sound pushed me into silence. I could break down, or I could make the silence work for me. I chose to wait. The walls heard everything, and so did I. My name is Charles. I'm 43. I live in Houston. We bought our house in a quiet neighborhood. The street has oaks and porch lights. Neighbors know each other. Sundays mean church across the street. Barbecue on the corner. That's our life. Marie, 30, moved in 2 years after we married. She laughed loud in the kitchen. She pressed her hand to my chest when she was happy. We had routines. Mornings were coffee on the back porch. Evenings were low music, a slow walk around the block. I worked late sometimes. I kept my gym bag by the door. She kept a stack of magazines on the coffee table. Our home smelled like roasted coffee and cedar. The living room had deep couches. The lamp light was soft. I could hear the fridge hum. At night, the house hummed like a calm ocean. Marie liked candles. She chose warm scents. She loved jazz in the background. I felt safe. I thought she did too. People in my family called me steady. My cousins trusted my word. I kept my calm. I gave advice. I gave thanks at family dinners. I supported my mother. I paid the bills. I bought the house. That gave me a steady rhythm. Marie fit in. She played piano for the church choir. She smiled at my nephews. She had charm. She had a way with the elders. Small moments mattered. Her fingers on the steering wheel when I drove, her head on my shoulder during late-night movies, her "you good" when I looked tired. Those things built us. Then small things began to change. The laugh that used to fill the kitchen felt distant. The way she moved through the rooms had a new sharpness. She started closing doors more. She began to answer my texts slower. She would tuck her phone face down. She would step out to take calls. I felt a chill in the rooms where we used to be warm. I told myself maybe it was stress. Maybe work was heavy, but a different shadow had arrived. I noticed it in the way Marie paused at the window. I noticed it in the way the house felt like someone else had walked through it. I could sense a story without the words, and that made me listen harder. Mini cliffhanger. One night, a key in the lock told me the truth was already moving toward us. The first red flag was small. She started dressing different, not flashy, just sharper, new cuts, a few pieces that caught light. She'd always liked looking good, but now I felt the look was for someone else. My voice in the room was steady. I watched her in the hallway like I'd read a player in a card game. I didn't call out the bets. I watched. Her phone changed the rhythm of our house. Before, it buzzed with family checks and church messages. Now it lived in her hand more. It vibrated at odd hours. She would step into the garage and shut the door when it rang. She'd smile quick, close-mouthed. Once I saw her hold the phone low like it carried a secret heat. I asked, "You good?" She looked up and said, "Yeah, just work stuff." Her eyes missed mine. She sounded thin. She started leaving later. Nights at choir became long. "We had extra rehearsal," she'd say. She came home with perfume that didn't smell like the candles. It smelled sharper. It clung to her hair. I remember the moment I first noticed. I was making coffee in the dark. She passed the kitchen and the steam curled in the lamplight. Her shoulder brushed mine and she smelled like another room. I froze. She hummed a tune I didn't know. The house felt different for a breath afterward. The nights had quieter air. I'd wake and find the bed cooler on her side. Sheets folded like a stranger had slept there. She'd turn from me slowly when I asked small things. "Why you acting different?" I asked once in a low voice at dinner. She smiled, practiced. "I have a lot on my mind, babe." Her hands moved on the plate fast, nervous. Her laugh became short, like it couldn't reach her eyes. Then there was the way she answered when people called her name. Family texts would come and she'd respond like nothing was wrong. But when someone asked about a place or a plan, she'd tuck the phone away. Her eyes darted to the hall like she was listening for footsteps. She began to close rooms. She started locking the bathroom sometimes when she showered. It felt small at first, but small things build into walls. One afternoon, I saw her leave in a hurry. She hugged me quick at the door, so fast it felt like she'd rehearsed the movement. "Be safe," she said. Her voice had a tremor I didn't hear before. I watched her go. I felt like I missed a chapter. I checked receipts once. Small purchases at late hours. A coffee on the east side at midnight. Gas at 1 a.m. I told myself to calm down. I told myself not to be the man who jumped to the end of the story. But a man's mind keeps details like pennies. They add up. I started to watch her closer, not in anger, in a calm way. I noticed the way her laugh softened when she read messages. I noticed the little sighs when she stared at the ceiling. I noticed the new names showing up in her head. Not on my phone, not in our home. I asked gentle questions. She deflected. She said, "You working too much?" I said, "Maybe." I said it quietly because anger came slow in me. Once I caught a half glimpse out of the window, two shadows under the streetlight, her voice and another voice, older, familiar. He laughed like he used to. My pulse went to the back of my throat. I tried to steady myself. I walked outside and saw nothing. The porch light showed the empty road, but my ears remembered. I began to feel watched by silence. The house felt like it had rooms that kept their own counsel. I made small tests. I left a breakfast plate half-eaten on purpose. I saw it cleaned later with care. I left a note in the sugar jar. "Call me." She didn't. I stopped sleeping well. My mind tried to hold the line between denial and proof. Then the obvious sign came. A message that slipped where it shouldn't. A notification on her screen I saw without meaning to. It read like a memory. It used a nickname I knew belonged to her past. My heart stuttered. The nickname was a name I had told myself she had buried. My hands shook. But the message was blurred when I reached for it. By the time I asked, she had already closed the app. She laughed like a professional. I lied to myself again. Maybe it was nothing. I knew then that I was on a slope. I could slide into a quick confrontation and risk breaking everything. Or I could listen longer. I chose to listen. I let the house tell me what it knew. I let my steady calm keep the lid closed on my mouth. I watched and the quiet grew louder. Mini cliffhanger. The night I found the name again. This time, in a place only two people could leave it, I realized the game was no longer secret. It was a Tuesday. Rain came hard that evening. The house smelled like wet asphalt. The lamp by the armchair made a small island of light. I sat there with my hands on a book I wasn't reading. My phone was on the table face down. Marie was in the shower. Water pattered like a soft drum. I had decided quietly to stop pretending everything was fine. Not to explode, just to know. I had a folder where I kept things I might need, receipts, screenshots, old emails. I opened it like a man opening a safe. My hands were calm. My skin felt cold under the lamplight. I found small things, a gas receipt from 2 nights ago, a coffee cup lid with lipstick I didn't recognize, a bracelet tied to a flyer for an event I hadn't been to. Then my fingers found a text thread I didn't expect. It was hidden under a name I recognized. The thread showed messages that were folded like secrets. I read one line and the world tilted. It was not crude. It was a plan, a meeting, a familiarity in language I knew belonged to someone from her past, a nickname, a private laugh they shared. The tone was casual. The content was intimate. My breath got heavy. I could hear the shower. The water fell faster. The rhythm made my pulse pound in time. I saw her reflection in the black window glass, steam wrapping the outline of her body. She hummed a song into the tiles. I read the message again. My hands moved. They started to tremble. I closed the folder like it could trap the truth inside paper. I left the folder on the coffee table and walked to the bedroom. The house felt like a movie set where the story finally shows its script. I opened the drawer where we kept spare keys. I didn't need to touch them. My mind moved faster than my feet. I found a printed photograph tucked behind a receipt. It showed Marie and a man standing close in a park. They were smiling like they used to. The man in the photo was older. He had a laugh in his eyes. I recognized that laugh. I had heard it in my head for years, the laugh of an ex she had once told me about, the ex-husband. I felt like someone had pushed on the floor and the house had tilted. My knees wanted to fold. I stayed upright. I focused on breath. I counted in. I counted out. The water stopped in the shower. The bathroom door opened. Steam rolled out like a slow fog. She stepped into my light wrapped in a towel. Her hair was wet. Her skin steamed. She smiled at me like she had a secret I was meant to find cute. "Everything okay?" she asked, voice soft. I held the picture like it was a weapon and not a piece of paper. I set it on the dresser. "Who's this?" I asked. My voice did not break. It was steady, low. She blinked. For a moment she looked like the woman I married, confused, guilty, human. Then the mask returned. "A friend," she said. Her hand trembled under the towel. She smiled too quickly. I saw the way her mouth tried to fix itself into neutral. I placed the thread on the bed. I did not shout. I let the rain do the sound work. "You leaving late?" I asked. I kept my voice even. She looked away. Her eyes filled quick. "Charles, it's complicated," she said. The word complicated sounded like a bandage. I felt the old man inside me, the one who learned to control his anger at family dinners. He taught me to speak slow when emotions burn. I said, "Who is he? Is he back?" Her lips moved. She whispered, "No, he's not back." She lied without saying it was a lie. Her hands worked at the towel. The picture stayed between us. It had heat on it like fresh glue. I felt the room shrink. My chest tightened. My hands trembled again, but this time my voice stayed calm. "Were you with him?" I asked. She lowered her head. "We met," she said. "It was a mistake." A mistake. The word hit like a small, bitter thing. I had imagined worse scenes. I had imagined ugliness. But the ache was not from crude acts. It was from betrayal of trust. From the soft, private exchanges that leave a marriage hollow. I wanted to crumble. I wanted to shout and tear the curtains. Instead, I listened to the quiet. I counted breaths. I saw my reflection in the mirror, tight jaw, eyes deep. She started to speak faster. Her words spilled like someone trying to patch a leak. "He reached out. He said he was sorry. He said he wanted to talk. I told him no at first. But he said things I didn't expect. I thought I could close it. I didn't mean for it to go this far." She looked at me like she needed me to choose the pain. Her hands gripped the towel. Tears ran down her face. She was shaking. I felt for her. I did not move. In my head, I rewound everything. The perfume, the late nights, the locked bathroom. Each piece slotted into place like a map revealing a route. Betrayal is like that. It arranges itself until the whole picture is visible. I could have called my brother. I could have gone to the house of the man in the photo that night. I could have torn the street apart with rage. But rage is fast and it wastes a man. I breathed and thought of law, of counsel, of cold facts. I thought of the children who might come from this, of the family names. I thought of the power of quiet. I chose to be careful. That night I realized everything was about to change. I looked at Marie and I thought about the life we built. I thought about the people who trusted me. I thought about what justice meant for me, what righting the wrong would look like. I felt my grief and let it become a slow, deliberate thing. I wrapped myself in it and planned. Mini cliffhanger. I went to sleep that night with a folder under my bed. The next morning I started preparing. I am not a loud man. I am not a man of fireworks. I am a man who builds. I have always been strategic. Pain makes strategy sharper. I sat at my desk under the cold light of my study the next morning. The city outside was gray. I opened a new notebook and wrote one word: evidence. I started small. I collected the receipts. I saved the emails. I took pictures of her watches and the perfume bottles that weren't ours. I printed the photo of her with him and put it in an envelope with the gas receipts. I kept a copy for myself. Proof is slow work. It doesn't need drama. It needs patience. Next, I looked at money. Money is a language of its own. It can cradle a life and it can cut ties cleanly. I called my attorney not to accuse her yet, but to learn. I moved investments into accounts that required 2 signatures. I updated passwords and secured my business papers in a safe place. I transferred titles quietly where necessary. I did not close doors. I locked them in a way I could prove later. I didn't want to look like a madman, so I acted like everything was normal. I kissed her in the morning. I told her I loved her. I took her to a lunch meeting and joked about the bills. I was gentle. I smiled. Inside, my mind drew maps of dates and times. I compared phone records against receipts. I recorded facts. I wrote down small details, the color of the thread in a shirt, the song she hummed on a certain night, the exact time of a text. I watched how the story unfolded in everyday things. I also built witnesses, not by theatrics. I invited family over for Sunday dinner and watched how Marie answered the door. I let cousins stay when they were in town. I asked my younger brother to bring up marriage talk in dinner conversation. I used community rhythm to watch her ease and strain under family eyes. People who love you will see things you miss. They said little, but the little things mattered. There was a moral pain. I sat with it. I told myself this wasn't about revenge as cruelty. It was about righting and justice. It was about accountability. I remembered my mother teaching me to choose my battles. That teaching made me careful. My plan was about power and dignity, not humiliation. I found strength in routine. I trained in the mornings. The gym was my temple. I ran until my lungs burned and the hurt turned to muscle. My wardrobe stayed simple. I wore fitted dark shirts that read calm. I went to work and let my mind file every new detail. At night, I would sit with the folder and go over the facts. The house hummed around me, unaware of the slow machine I was assembling. There were nights when guilt walked in. I would find Marie asleep on the couch after a long shift. She'd wake and reach for me. I held her like a man holding a sob. I felt compassion and I felt betrayal at once. That mix was heavy. Sometimes I wanted to tell her everything I found and watch honesty wake us, but I didn't. I reminded myself that truth is a tool. When used properly, it heals the wounded. When used badly, it destroys more than cheaters. My attorney advised me on steps that protect me and keep things legal. He taught me how to compile evidence for family court. He taught me the steps to separate finances in ways that could not be undermined. I followed every instruction. I saved transaction histories, screenshots, and timestamps. I made backup copies digital and printed. I sealed envelopes with dates. I numbered files. The hardest part was pretending normal. I had to love in performance. I would make dinner and ask about her day. I would laugh when she told stories. I would stroke her hair in the living room light like nothing was wrong. My calmness felt like a mask, but it was also an armor. It kept me focused. It hid the plan until the moment I chose to reveal it. Friends noticed the change. They said, "Man, you look different." My cousin Marcus asked if I was okay. I smiled and said, "I'm good." That was true in a way. I was good because I had a plan. I was good because I had control. As the weeks passed, I watched the evidence pile up. Dates matched. Stories diverged. The ex's name was not a whisper anymore. It lived in messages and in his visits that matched receipts. I learned where he worked again. I learned his hours. I kept distance but watched from a safe place. I recorded his license plate when he parked near our street. I made maps of their meetings. I also thought about dignity. I wanted to win with class. I wanted the community to see the truth and feel the justice without humiliation. That required prudence. I wrote my speeches in advance, what I would say when I confronted her. I rehearsed a calm voice. The voice I would use was the one that builds, not burns. Finally, I set a date in my mind. Not a day on the calendar. A moment when all the facts would line up. A day when her lies could not be dressed up. A moment when I could walk into the room and lay out truth in a way that could not be argued away. The day I chose to confront her, I was no longer the same man. Mini cliffhanger. On that day, the house smelled like lemon cleaner and destiny. I had placed the folder on the table. I waited. It was our anniversary. I chose that night not for cruelty but for clarity. Anniversaries make a truth sharper. We sat at the dining table. Candles burned low. The house smelled like lemon and roasted chicken. I had set a plate for two. Marie wore a dress that caught the light. She smiled because she thought tonight was for renewing vows. I let her. I wanted to see her face when truth arrived. I kept my speech simple in my head. Calm words, hard facts. After the plates were cleared, I placed an envelope in front of her. The paper made a small whisper. She looked surprised. "What's this?" she asked. I opened another folder and laid out things slowly. A photo, receipts, screen prints with dates. A timeline I had written on a single sheet, dates, times, places. I pushed it across like a dealer sliding cards. Her smile fell, her fingers shook. She reached for the photo and the receipts like they burned. "Charles," she said, "I can explain." I did not raise my voice. I did not use the words that collapse a man. I said, "I know about him." My voice was low. It hit the table like a stone. The room went quiet. The candle flame was the only movement for a breath. She stood, her hands were open. "It wasn't like that," she said. Her voice came out smaller than the words on the paper. She paced like someone trying to find her feet. "He reached out and she stopped. Tears came quick. Her voice frayed. She looked like a child who had been caught taking something. I asked, why? It was a simple question, but the thing that follows is heavy. She told me about loneliness. She told me about old wounds. She told me about a call in the dark that felt like remembering. I listened. I listened because I wanted to know if she felt remorse. I listened because I needed to know if she understood what trust meant. She collapsed into the couch. She cried like the woman I loved and the woman I didn't know were both there fighting. She said, "I'm sorry, I never meant to hurt you." The words were sticky with regret. I watched her body language. She bowed her head. Her shoulders shook. I walked to the window and looked at the street. Neon from a passing car painted the wall. I thought about the family dinners, the quiet Sunday mornings. I thought about the folks we'd let into our lives. I thought about how the community would hear this. I thought about the children we might have. Then I spoke about consequences. I described the steps I had taken. I told her about the accounts I had secured. I explained how I had documented things. I told her I had spoken to my attorney. I placed the facts plainly on the table like cold stones. She listened like someone listening to a verdict. She tried to bargain. She offered to get help. She promised to stop seeing him. She said she would make amends. Part of me wanted to believe, but belief without evidence had already failed. I told her I loved her, but that love did not mean absence of justice. I told her that actions have costs. I told her I would not humiliate her publicly. But I would not let lies stand. Her eyes went to the photo on the table. She whispered his name like a wound. She said he told her things that made her feel wanted. She said she had been vulnerable. Her voice was small. I could have screamed. I could have stormed out. I could have made a scene in front of our neighbors, but I did none of those things. I took a deep breath and told her what would happen. I would ask for separation. She would leave the house. She would surrender certain assets. We would involve counsel. I would not ruin her. I would not destroy her life out of spite. I would, however, make sure there was fairness and account. I spoke about the moral and legal framework like a man guiding rather than punishing. She began to plead. She said she loved me. She said she would change. I heard the plea. I also knew that patterns do not bend easily. The truth, I said, was the only path to healing. She cried into her hands. Her body language told more than her words. She pulled at the dress. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen. The confident woman who had walked through rooms with a certain power looked like a shell, but I saw a human under the shell. That complicated me. At the end, she whispered, "You're going to take everything." She sounded afraid, and I felt sympathy even then. I responded, "I'm going to take what's fair. I'm going to take what's right." My voice had a calm edge. I told her I wanted a clean break that allowed me dignity and allowed her the chance to rebuild. She nodded like someone accepting a sentence. She knew she had already lost. Mini cliffhanger. She left that night with a small bag. The house closed behind her, but the story did not end there. After she left, the neighborhood noticed. People asked questions. In Houston, word moves like wind. My family called. My cousins offered silence and support. Marcus came by with his quiet nod. My mother stayed on the phone. The community murmured, but it did not judge loudly. When truth is shown with calm facts, the gossip settles. Legally, we moved through steps. I worked with my attorney to separate finances cleanly. The house title required adjustments. We arranged a settlement that reflected years of shared life and the evidence I'd gathered. She lost claim to certain assets that had been in both our names. I did not take everything. I took enough to secure the life I had built and to protect future stability. I ensured she had a fair amount to get back on her feet. I wanted justice, not revenge for revenge's sake. But justice sometimes means hard outcomes. She left the house we shared. She lost certain privileges in our business ventures. Word reached her family. That part hurt. Community whispers followed her. She posted silence where once there were many pictures. Her ex, he was no help when the legal papers showed up. He faded from the neighborhood like someone slipping out a back door. The man who had once laughed in a park with her did not stand by while the family sorted legalities. That absence told a story in itself. There were court dates. We sat across from each other in rooms filled with law books and bright ceiling lights. The judge listened to what we had. The judge saw the documentation. In court, the truth felt clinical. It is a strange thing to watch emotion be weighed by paper. The judge ruled in a way that honored evidence and fairness. The judge ordered restitution on some items and cleared certain claims. The legal process was not vengeance theater. It was methodical and precise. At home, the community's reaction was layered. Some cousins avoided the topic. My friends rallied with quiet dinners and texts that said, "Call if you need." My church family prayed and then reached hands out. They offered meals and listening ears. The neighborhood that had watched us for years now had a new story. People respected the way I handled it. They said I was calm. That calmness was a tool I wielded to keep my life intact. Marie's regret was visible. I saw it in the things she left behind: a scarf on the stair, a mug with a crack. She texted once, then twice, then went silent. Her family called and asked for peace. I gave them boundaries and asked for respect. I wanted to close the doors with dignity. In the months after, I felt lighter in a different way. The house, not the marriage, felt mine again. I walked through rooms and noticed little things: the sunlight in the hallway, the hum of the refrigerator, the quiet that is not heavy. I started to rebuild in small, practical ways. I went back to training harder. I took trips with my brothers. I listened to more jazz. I learned to cook a new meal. There was no celebration. There was only quiet rebuilding. I learned that winning was not pounding someone into the ground. Winning was creating a future where I could breathe and where I could live with my choices. I had paid a price emotionally, but I had also reclaimed my life. Sometimes at night, I still think of the woman who sat across from me in the dining room and cried. I feel a mix of sorrow and relief. We both lost parts of what we had, but the community saw a man hold to dignity when everything wanted to collapse. That mattered. In the end, the man I became was steadier. I had shown myself that calm could be as fierce as anger. I had shown myself that planning could be a mercy to the self. The verdict of the street was quiet approval. The legal verdict was fairness. The emotional verdict is mine to carry. Mini cliffhanger. I stood on the porch one morning as the sun rose. The house felt new, but something else had shifted inside me forever. Betrayal hurts like a clean cut. It takes time to heal. I learned the power of calm. I learned to turn pain into a plan instead of a panic. If you ever find yourself betrayed, don't burn bridges out of anger. Gather facts. Protect your future. Speak with counsel. Keep your dignity. Let justice be steady, not a spectacle. I'm not proud of the hurt I felt, but I am proud of how I handled it. I chose fairness over fury. I chose truth over rumor. I kept my family's name and my own soul intact. To any man or woman in pain, listen to your heart but move with your head. Love is worth fighting for, but trust is sacred. If trust breaks, rebuild slowly. If you must separate, do it with honor. Life will give you a sunrise again. Mine came on a quiet morning when the city was still soft and the light found the hallway. I walked toward it. I kept walking,